Hello, everyone. Semi-retired Bob here. As always, we're going to talk about the carnivore diet, all things related to the carnivore diet, and miscellaneous odds and ends. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any topics you'd like me to cover, please feel free to put those over in the chat. Someone let me know if you can hear me. I see Feral Grandma has checked in. Absolutely right. Don't forget to click that like button. If you're here and haven't clicked the like button yet, I would really appreciate it if you did. John has arrived. Hello, John. I am having a great day. How about yourself? 93 degrees here in Southeast Indiana. It's a little on the warm side here today, too, but it is the middle of July, which means it's summertime. And Paul is here. Hello, Paul. I'm glad you made it. Sounds okay. Video's okay. Thank you, Paul. And Addicted to Antlers is here, and she did hit the like button. Thanks. So, as you can tell from the title, we're going to talk about stupid reasons to avoid carnivore today. If you have any stupid things people have said to you about the carnivore diet and would like me to talk about them, please feel free to go ahead and drop a comment over there in the side. But, gee, which one should we start with first? There's so many. Let's start with the one that always comes up. But vitamin C. How are you going to get vitamin C in your diet if you're not eating plants? You're going to get scurvy. As we all know, there is vitamin C in the muscle meat of ruminant animals. One of the things that they don't take into account, because there is not a lot of vitamin C, but as it turns out, we don't need a lot of vitamin C, as long as we're not dumping a bunch of sugar into our system as well. As we have learned from watching people that actually know the science, we will find that vitamin C is transported into the cell via the GLUT4 transporter. What else does the GLUT4 transporter do? Well, it lets sugar pass into our system. As Professor K describes it, it's like two fat guys trying to fit through a revolving door at the same time. Usually, the bigger, heavier fat guy is going to win that struggle. And that's what happens with vitamin C, is it's trying to get into your cells. If it's competing with sugar, you need much bigger quantities of it for it to get into your system. But if you're not eating sugar, it doesn't take nearly as much vitamin C. Vitamin C deficiency that causes scurvy takes about 6 weeks to develop. So all of the people out there that have been doing carnivore for longer than 6 weeks should have scurvy. I'm assuming that Rick is going to show up at some point unless he's busy outside working, but he's been doing this for almost 41 years now. Dr. Chafee, Dr. Baker, Professor K has been doing a ketogenic style lifestyle for 27 years or so. So there are many examples out there of long-term carnivores that do not have scurvy. Why? Because yes, you do need vitamin C, but there is sufficient vitamin C in the muscle meat of large ruminant animals, as long as you're not trying to compete with sugar. Okay, let's go back to the comments here for just a moment. Where was I? That's Feral Grandma saying hello, 86 in Central Texas. And Danny Banks is here, one of my channel members. Let's go ahead and change that ticker down there. Danny is one of my channel members, been around here for quite some time. Thank you, Danny. And more people saying hello. And there's another one of my channel members, Waza. Hello from South Australia. Glad you got to tune in today, Waza. That makes me very happy. Stupid reason. I'm French, so I cook with many plants and so forth. Yes. And, I've talked about this before. Do I think that plants are evil and we shouldn't have any of them? For the most part, yes. But just like other seasonings, if we have done our N=1 experiment, like done the total elimination of lion diet for 60 or 90 days, so that all we're having is ruminant meat, salt, and water, if you like the taste of a certain spice, whether it be, throwing a little garlic in with your meat, or whatever the green plants are that you're constantly seeing steaks presented with or cooked with, as long as it's just used as a spice add-on, I don't see anything wrong with it, provided you've done the experiment to know whether or not that particular plant causes problems for you. I know quite a few people who are carnivore, but they add pepper, or they add, if you look at Carnivore Kip, he does quite a few spices on his meat, but he's done the experiments of using just salt for enough time to know whether or not the spices he's using on meats affect him. Now, I think we can go overboard with that kind of stuff as well, but yes, the whole I'm French, so I cook with many plants and so forth. Yes, that another one of those stupid reasons not to do carnivore. But like I said, if you have done the experiment and know which plants you're using as seasoning and you know they don't affect you, I'm not so dogmatic that I'm going to tell you should stop doing that, as long as you know that those plants don't affect you. Yes, and Danny says the one I hear the most is, but you have to have fiber, and I just smile and nod. And fiber is not a key thing. You don't have to have any of it. I can tell you that I don't have any fiber in my diet, and I go to the bathroom just fine. One of the other things that they talk about with fiber is that, well, you have to have some fiber because the bacteria in your gut eats the fiber and provides this short chain fatty acid that you need to support gut health. And technically that's true. And I'm not going to try to say the names, because everybody knows that I get in trouble when I try to do sciencey type stuff. But what happens is, yes, there is some short chain fatty acids that are made by the fermentation of fiber in your gut. But it just so happens that the short chain fatty acid then has to be converted into a usable form to feed the lining of your intestines. The thing that it gets converted to is one of the three major ketones that our body produces when we're in ketosis. And the gut doesn't care which side the particular nutrient is coming from, as long as it gets it. So being in ketosis provides you with the exact same nutrient for your gut health as the fermenting of fiber does. So no, fiber is not something that you have to have. And while we're talking about fiber, I'm sure everybody in the chat right now has heard of Dr. Paul Mason, and you have watched his videos on the subject. If you haven't, I suggest that you go do that after this live stream, of course. But there was, and I don't want to call it an experiment, because experiments require, all of the things that are required and for control and all that other stuff for proper experimentation. But the one pseudoscientific experiment that was conducted by Dr. Mason's group, and it's the only one that I'm aware of, they took people with chronic constipation. Chronic idiopathic constipation, which means they don't know exactly what's causing it. And it was a very small study. I believe it was an N equals 63 or N equals 64. So there weren't a lot of people. The interesting finding is that the people that they had increased their fiber, the people that had idiopathic constipation, their symptoms got worse. And not surprisingly, those that kept their fiber intake the same, their symptoms stayed the same. The interesting part of this study is that to a person, everyone that was told to cut fiber out of their diet for the study had 100% remission of their idiopathic constipation symptoms. Now, do I think this is proving anything? No, because like I said, it was a very small study, but I think it leads us in the right direction to tell us exactly how much fiber we need in our diet, which is none. I don't think we need it. And I know I can tell you I haven't had any for 2 years, and I go to the bathroom just fine. Let's jump back into the comments here and see what other people have to say. Don't forget the rickets. Yes, we'll talk about all of that other stuff. Yes, I here need fiber a lot. Fiber is available as a supplement. If Professor K ever comes out in favor of it, I'll get some. But that's one of the things I like about Professor K, is that he's been saying the same things since I started watching him, and he has never deviated his course. He knows the science, and he talks about the science in each and every one of his videos, and his opinions don't change. What he says doesn't change. I got the fiber rant from a younger sibling I have since lost to cancer. Yeah, I am sorry that they have passed, Granny. But yeah, you do not need fiber. And Let's Junk More Health is here. Hello, young man. How are you today? And we have people saying hello to everybody. Marty Meater, Let's Junk, everybody. So again, if you have any other stupid things that you'd like to talk about, or just carnivore in general, feel free to put those in the comments. I'm going to move on to the next stupid thing that I have heard. That, well, you shouldn't eat too much red meat because it just rots in your gut. And eventually you'll be so full of undigested red meat that it's going to overload and flood and poison your system. As we all know, that's absolutely false. It's not even a debate. The thing that I fall back on when somebody says this to me is I point them to a Dr. Barry video where he was interviewing a nurse who, her job in the hospital is to teach people, because when people have not colonoscopies, but the colon removal surgery, when they have to have a bag to poo into. She has worked for decades as the person who teaches them how to care for those bags when they're ready to leave the hospital, to go home with their new way of doing poo. And what she talks about And other people that have those bags can tell you as a fact what types of things end up in those bags. Well, it's plant material. Not once has anybody that's ever worked with one of those bags found a chunk of undigested meat in that bag, because our body knows what to do with meat and it digests it all the way. It's gone before it gets to the colon. What passes all the way through? Well, it goes back to what we were just talking about before, fiber. Things with fiber in them, things that are undigestible, pass all the way through the system. And those are the things that rot in your gut, because what is rotting in your gut? Well, it's being fermented by the bacteria in your gut. Do we have this ability? Yes, we do, to a very small degree. We don't have the same capacity as, if you look at a gorilla and that great big belly, even though it's the belly, that's its huge cecum. It's known as a hindgut fermenter. It has a large capacity to ferment the fibrous stuff. Because the thing that people don't realize is that as yes, there's plant eaters out there, cows, gorillas, the list goes on and on and on. But do they actually live on the plants themselves? No. The plants get fermented by the bacteria in their gut, and it's broken down into short-chain fatty acids and other things, fatty acids and amino acids, and that's what the animal lives on. All animals live on amino acids, proteins, and fatty acids, fats. That's what they live on. They don't actually live on the plants. It's the fermenting action of the plant by the bacteria in their gut that gives them the nutrition they need. And as I understand it, the amino acids or the proteins actually come from the bacteria dying off as new ones take their place. And I'm not going to get any further into the science, because we all know Bob gets in trouble when he tries to do science, but that's one of the new things. Let's see here. Ectomy. Yeah. That's probably correct, Granny. As we all know, I'm not a super scientific person. So what are some of the other ridiculous things you hear people say? Now, this is not as dumb as the other things that I hear, but it's still just as dumb. Oh, well, you need a balanced diet. What exactly is a balanced diet? Nobody can ever say. They're like, oh, well, you got to have all the different colors on your plate. Well, no, because a balanced diet to me means we have a balance of the correct amino acids and fatty acids in our system. We have no need of carbohydrates. We have no need of fiber, which is a carbohydrate. We don't need any of that stuff. That's what a balanced diet is to me. Am I an expert on this? No, not at all. I'm just an old retired truck driver. But just to give you a quick little reminder of where this all started and the progress I've made over, well, today's the 12th, so it's been a little over 2 years and 2 months since I started the carnivore diet. So let's take a quick 20-second flashback to where this started 26 months ago. Hello everyone, semi-retired Bob here. Welcome back to the channel. Before I get into today's topic, I'm going to give you a very brief recap of what happened to me over the last year and some change and why I haven't made any videos because of it. And then that's where we were a little over 2 years ago. So I'm not an expert, but I have experienced a little bit of this too. Let's see here. Balanced diet. Ribeye in one hand, a box of butter in the other. If the ribeye is big enough, you probably need 2 boxes of butter in one hand to kind of balance out the weight for you there, Granny. Depends on how strong people are or how big the ribeye is. Oh, well, the carnivore diet isn't sustainable. Well, we've talked about this already in some of the other things. Tell Rick, Charger Mopar, that the carnivore diet isn't sustainable. He's been doing it for almost 41 years now. How about Maggie, that rancher? I believe she's up in Alberta. She's, 82, 83 years old, been doing carnivore for basically 65 years. And by the way, if you've never seen any of Maggie's interviews, she looks like she's maybe 45 or 50. Certainly does not look like an 80. And then, of course, all of the normal carnivore influencers that are anywhere from 5 to 20 years into this thing. I'm sure they would tell you how totally unsustainable this diet is as well. Yeah, how about birthdays and Christmas? You have to have some cake. Yeah, and that, that's one of the things that I do want to talk about here, because as you progress through your journey, they're talking about, oh, well, you need to stay flexible. Why? There's nothing in a piece of cake that I need. Did I have cake that first Thanksgiving? Yes, and it didn't make me feel that bad. But as we get further and further away from all the carbs and the crap that we used to eat, it's amazing how bad some of that stuff can make us feel, because we are more in tune with our body's functioning properly, because we're not dumping all the poison into it. And if we break and do I think a piece of cake on your birthday is going to ruin it all for you? No, it's not going to ruin it all for you. But I think you do run the risk of feeling really bad afterwards, because your body is no longer used to getting poisoned all the time. That's one of the things that I have found. I did not realize how badly I was poisoning myself with the diet that I was following, which is basically the diet that all of my doctors had recommended. All the fruits, all the vegetables, whole grains, the whole 9 yards, the standard Western diet. I didn't eat a whole lot of processed foods, but I did eat some. And all of that together, I didn't realize how bad it was making me feel. And I'm sure if I went back and had just one thing, I might notice it for a day or two, but it's certainly not going to drive me completely off the rails. But why would I want to risk it? I was in such bad shape. You just saw that video. I was in horrible shape when I started this diet, and now I'm not. Why would I want to risk going back to being the person I was? In fact, I had a comment. Oh, it's been a couple of weeks ago now, and I made a little video about it, but let's go ahead and talk about it here today, because I see there's 16 of you in the chat. I got a comment that said, oh, Bob, it looks like you haven't lost any weight in a while. Maybe it's time to start adding some carbs back to see if you can't jumpstart your weight loss. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to add some carbs back so that it might jumpstart my weight loss, or it might just throw me off the rails or make me feel like I did 2 years ago. I don't want any of that. And as I've always said, the carnivore diet is not actually a weight loss diet. It's a health optimization diet. We don't get to decide how much weight we're going to lose or gain. We can do certain things to alter our body composition by like going to work out, going walking, doing all the things that we do to increase muscle. But there is a certain amount of fat that is required by the human body. And I believe I've just kind of reached the equilibrium point. Is it as quite as light as I thought I'd like to get? No, but I feel pretty doggone good. So we don't get to choose where we land as far as the weight goes. Mostly, we can put on weight by building muscle, and we can do some things to lose a little bit more fat. But if you don't want to do those things, if you just want to keep eating carnivore diet and living your life, which is really what this is all about, then we need to learn to be happy with where we're at. Would I like some of this saggy skin around my neck to go away? I would. And eventually I think it will. I think if you go back and look at my videos from a year ago, you'll find that I have much less there now than I did a year ago. And hopefully a year from now, it will be even less. As Dr. Berry tells us about skin that sags off because we've lost a ton of weight, he said that it will go down, but slowly. What Dr. Berry suggests we do is take a picture of ourselves and then 6 months later, take another picture and compare those two. And we should be able to see, it may not be a huge difference, but we should be able to see some difference. Let's see here. Waza says, no cake for my birthday, 12 months keto, 6 months carnivore, and I still clearly have carb cravings. And a lot of people do. Some people do continue to have carb cravings, even after 6 months or a year. Am I going to tell you I never have a carb craving? No. As you all know, I work at the miniature golf course on the weekends, and I don't know that I would call it a craving, but the thing that I have trouble with, which is why I keep a package of boiled eggs in the pop cooler at the miniature golf course. Because sometimes late on a Saturday night, because I'm there usually from about 10:30 on down to 11:15, sometimes even as late as 11:30, I'm just sitting there waiting for people to finish their games so that I can lock up and go home. I've got everything done and I'm just sitting there. Do I really want the Snickers bar that's sitting in the pop cooler? We put it in there so it doesn't melt, because if you keep chocolate outside in this kind of weather, it just turns into chocolate soup. Do I really want the Snickers bar? No, not really. But sometimes as I'm sitting there, I'll look at it and go, a Snickers bar wouldn't kill me. And if I think about it more than once or twice, that's when I get the boiled eggs out and salt them up and eat them, and everything is fine. And that's what we have to do. I have several videos on the channel that talk about crushing the cravings and strategies we can use to get past those cravings. And I suggest that we all do that and keep that in the back of your mind, because even me at 2+ years in, I still occasionally, I don't know that I'll go so far as to call it a craving, but it probably is a craving. You know, you're sitting there waiting for people to finish their game of golf, and you are just sitting there staring at the Snickers bars going, you know, one Snickers bar isn't going to kill me. No, but we all know that one Snickers bar could lead to another, which could lead to another, and then pretty soon you're having a carboholic storm, and we don't want that. Patricia has arrived. Hello, Patricia. Hi, Bob. Been working in the yard, so I'm late. Beautiful day here in Indiana. See, it all depends on mindset. We should probably talk a little bit about our mindset today, because we had somebody earlier that was complaining about how hot it was in Indiana. And now we have somebody that says it's a beautiful day in Indiana. Now, I don't know how far apart they are and what the temperature difference is. And I'm not saying that complaining about the heat is a bad thing. But I know many people that will go outside when it's 90 degrees and say, oh, it's so hot out. And other people go outside in 90 degrees and go, this is great. Let's go do something. So we need to keep track of our mindset as we work our way through everything. John Boston's here. Hello, Bob. I hope all is well. And I hope everything's okay with you. Let's see here. In case you're wondering, 68 years old today. Yeah, Paul, happy birthday. And if you guys haven't met Paul, I do have a video. He's the most recent interview I put up on my channel. So you should go watch that video after the live stream today and say hi to Paul and say happy birthday to Paul in the comments. My family doesn't help, but the guys at work have taken out the junk food box for me. And 2 of them at Carnivore just last week. That's outstanding, Keith. Yes, indeed. That is outstanding. Just keep up with them if they need any help. You know lots of carnivores that you can direct them to. And getting rid of the junk food box is a big step. I talked about it in my video a few days ago about getting started on carnivore the right way. And we need to keep in mind that the cravings are going to continue. So the best way to combat the cravings is to not have anything in the house. Give me just a second here, guys. I need to drink water. Because, you know, as I've discovered sitting at the miniature golf course, because they're Snickers bars down in the cooler, they're there and they become a temptation. Here at the house, there's nothing like that here to eat. So for me to get a craving and act on it, let's say I decided I wanted a Snickers bar while I'm sitting here talking to you guys today, I would have to get up out of my chair, go outside, start my truck, drive to the store, buy a Snickers bar, and then probably eat it in the truck on the way home, having a whole maybe 45 seconds to a minute of pleasure, and then who knows how much pain it would cause. That's just not worth it. But it's much. The whole point is that if you don't have it in your house, or in this case for Keith, as long as the junk food box isn't there at work, it's much easier to not have cravings if you have to go out of your way to get it. Because I'm assuming that while you're at work, Keith, that you can't just say, oh, I need to go get a candy bar. And you can't just leave work, jump in your truck, run down to the store and get a candy bar and then come back to work. So if it's not there available for you, it's much easier to avoid those things. And we have some people saying happy birthday to Paul there. Let's see here. So what we've talked about today so far, for those of you that have arrived late, we talked about the ridiculousness of the but vitamin C argument. And we've talked about how you don't actually need fiber. We've talked about how it's not sustainable. We've talked about meat sitting there rotting in your gut. I'm trying to think if there's any other truly ridiculous things that they're always talking about on the other side of the aisle. The people that are always saying, oh, carnivore diet is terrible. Oh, the big one that I forgot to talk about, cholesterol and heart disease. Yes. Let's not forget that eating all of this saturated fat is going to cause heart disease because it's going to make our cholesterol go up. First of all, the thing that everybody needs to understand, and if you've been hanging around a while in this space, you've heard Professor K talk about it and many other people. There's no such thing as good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. There is only one molecule in the body that is cholesterol, and that is cholesterol. There is no evidence that cholesterol is causal in any way in heart disease. Is there cholesterol in atherosclerotic plaques that build up in people's arteries? Absolutely. To the tune of about 5%. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's a little less, but the average is about 5%. And one of the things that Professor K talks about is obviously because every time you see a big forest fire or any other kind of fire on TV or in a TV show or on the news, what's the one thing you always see? A bunch of firemen scurrying around. Does that mean that the firemen caused the fire? Would the fire go away if we didn't have firemen to go out to the fire? Well, no, that's just ridiculous. And Professor K has recently put out several very good videos talking about what actually does promote heart disease. And saturated fat. Let's talk about saturated fat for just a moment. I challenge you, because saturated fats, the big difference between saturated fats and oils, besides their, the nutrients they provide, is that if you've ever picked up a bottle of canola oil or any other kind of oil in the store, what state is it in at room temperature? It's liquid. If you pick up a chunk of beef fat or pork fat or butter, it might get a little soft at room temperature, but it doesn't become liquid at room temperature. But if you heat it up to, say, 98 degrees, which is about what the human body is, what happens to it? It turns to liquid. So I challenge you to take a small tube and pour heated butter through it and make it form a clot inside there. That's not a great analogy, but it's the one I'm working with. The other thing to know about saturated fat, all of the studies out there that aren't really studies, they're just associative data sets. Well, there are 5 major meta-analyses that look at saturated fat, trying to link it to heart disease and anything else they could link it to. Come to find out, while this is not cause and effect, it's not definitive proof, because associative data sets cannot say this is definitely true or this is definitely not true. Well, they can. If there's no association to be found, then odds are that there's no link to be found. And the 5 major meta-analyses determined that there was no link, no association between saturated fat and any known problem in the human body, which tells me saturated fat is perfectly okay. And not only that, when I eat saturated fat, which is basically what I eat meat and the associated fat of large ruminant animals, I feel pretty doggone good. How about you? There is no problem with saturated fat or cholesterol. Two of the big arguments. And Granny Farrell has said, and you have to supplement. Absolutely. Yeah, this is another one of those big ones that they like to hang their hat on a fairly regular basis. If you had to supplement, first of all, let's back up and explain very quickly what an essential amino acid or essential fatty acid is. Essential nutrients in the body means that your body doesn't make them. You have to eat them, like vitamin C. There's not a human on this planet that has the DNA encoding to create their own vitamin C. Vitamin C is essential. You have to eat it to get it into your system. Well, if there was any essential nutrient that you have to have that isn't available in a standard carnivore diet, then please explain to me how Dr. Baker looks the way he does. Explain to me how Dr. Chafee looks the way he does. Explain to me how Dr. Berry looks the way he does. And even then, you can go on and take it even further. Rick Charger Mopar, the guy who's been doing carnivore for almost 41 years, would he still be alive if there was something that you had to have that wasn't available in a carnivore diet? How about Maggie, the rancher, who's 80, I forget what she is, 82, 83, 84, somewhere in her early 80s? Would she still be alive if there was something not available in the carnivore diet that you absolutely had to have? It's not our side of the aisle that has to supplement. Now, I'm not going to name any names, but if you look at the other side of the aisle and some of their big influencers, the good influencers from that side of the aisle will tell you right up front, if you're going to start that way of eating, they will show you this big handful of supplements that you have to take to remain healthy. Obviously, some of the big ones, like vitamin B12. You have to take a supplement for that. But there are many others. And the thing that I would comment on here, there is a certain carnivore influencer that clearly is pale and has age spots on their forehead. Age spots, while I'm not a doctor, and the person who pointed this out is a doctor, but does not have this person's medical records to know for sure. But the most common cause of age spots is a vitamin B deficiency. Now, I would say to you, if an influencer who's very well known and probably wealthy enough to buy all the supplements he wants, if a person like that can't get the supplementation right so that they look healthy, what chance does the average person have to be healthy on eating the other side of the aisle? Whereas I know a ton of carnivores, just like me. I don't know a thing about science. I'm just an old retired truck driver. And yes, I have some loose skin from having been so grossly overweight for most of my life, but I think I look pretty healthy. And I don't take any supplements. I do take a nutraceutical, and as many of you know, I take here. Let me go ahead and flip this over real quick. I do take the Stem Enhance Ultra and the Plasma Flow and the Cyactive from the Cerule company. Do I think I have to take those to stay healthy? No. I think they make me more healthy because, as we all know, the mechanics of our body that help us repair and rejuvenate our cells that are dead and dying is our bone marrow spits out stem cells. Our own stem cells come out and they float around in our blood, passing out these little first aid packages that help our slightly damaged cells repair themselves. I forget what they're called, but they're out there. They're these little packets. And then when they encounter a cell that's too badly damaged to be repaired, our own adult stem cell binds to that cell and replicates it, creating a whole new cell in the place of the damaged one. That's part of the human repair process. Our ability to release the stem cells into our bloodstream begins to go down from the time we're 18 onward, so that we continue to lose our ability over time to release our own adult stem cells out of our bone marrow. And that's what the Stem Enhance Ultra does. It boosts our ability to release stem cells back into our body. It enhances our own body's natural healing ability. There, that's my little pitch about Cerule today. I hope you liked it okay. Really strong arm tactics, huh? But if you have any questions or comments, as always, my email address is semiretiredbob@yahoo.com. Feel free to send me any questions or comments you might have if you don't feel like putting them over here in the comment section of the video. Let's see here. I hear colon cancer and kidney disease all the time. Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left. Let me go ahead and the colon cancer thing, I have a whole video about that just a week or so ago. And kidney disease, I think I covered it 3 weeks ago. If you look at the primary cancers out there, how do they find them? Well, they use a thing called a PET scan. And what they do is they inject basically a radioactive sugar into your system. And because sugar is the thing that cancer cells love the most, it sucks up this radioactive sugar, making them light up on a PET scan so that you can find them. Without sugar, now, again, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I don't pretend to know anything about the science, but you don't have to look very far to find an interview or a video from Professor K or Dr. Berry or Dr. Baker or Chafee or even Dave Mack over at Zero Carb. You can find plenty of interviews out there where people discovered that they had cancer, whether it be colon cancer or some other type of cancer. And they said, my dad or my granddad or whoever took chemo and did all that stuff, and that's not how I want to go out. So I'm going to go ahead and do this carnivore diet because I've heard that can help, and see what happens. And lo and behold, many of those people see their cancer's growth slow. Some of them stop growing altogether. And there are interviews out there with people whose cancer has gone into remission. And all they did was begin eating a proper human diet instead of feeding the cancer with all that sugar. Same thing with kidney disease. The thing that makes people think protein is bad for the kidneys is that your kidney gets diseased by sugar. But what happens is as the kidney is becoming damaged, the kidney's job is to take the things that the body needs and put it back into circulation while passing out the stuff you don't need. And one of the first things that it can't recycle any longer is, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it or tell you which amino acid it is, but it's a certain protein. It's an amino acid that the kidney can no longer recirculate. Is one of the first things that, shall we say, falls through the cracks of a damaged kidney, which is where the myth comes from that protein damages your kidneys, because it doesn't. It's the sugar that damages the kidney, inhibiting its ability to recycle that protein. And while we're talking about the kidneys, one of the big ones that I actually had one myself way back when, you can go back and watch the videos from a couple of years ago now, and many other people. And one of the things you hear about the carnivore diet is that, oh, I tried the carnivore diet and it gave me a kidney stone. No, it did not give you a kidney stone. The kidney stone was already there. The thing that makes a kidney stone hurt is when you try to pass it out of your body. And if it stays big so that it can't pass out of your body, you never know it's there. But when you start a carnivore diet, you begin to reduce the size of the kidney stones, because most kidney stones in people are made, the one thing they're going to say is, oh, well, it's calcium. Well, they forget the other part of it. It's calcium oxalate binding together, making the stone. Where do oxalates come from? Plants. But when you're no longer taking in oxalates, your kidney stone, as your body begins to try to dump off oxalates, your kidney stone will begin to shrink in size. And then it gets small enough to be passed out of the kidney. You get the pain, and now all of a sudden you're sitting there screaming because the carnivore diet gave you a kidney stone. Well, no, the carnivore diet did not give you a kidney stone or a gallstone or any of those things. It just made it smaller. So it was actually helping you, but because the stone got small enough for your body to try and get rid of it, it caused pain. And the first thing people think of is, well, this was caused by the diet I ate. And technically they're right, but not in the way they think. Granny Farrell just finished off a pound of white fish and a couple tablespoons of butter. Sounds good. One of these days, when I get down there to Texas, you're going to have to cook some stuff up and bring it out to this yellow square of land I've got there. And very quickly, because we're down to a little under 5 minutes to go here, Dave asked about this in the live stream, and he didn't realize it. He's like, so how much can you actually get done on that little yellow square of land? Well, this is a backdrop. That little yellow square of land is actually 10 acres of land, which means each side of it is about 660 yards. It's basically 6 football fields with the end zones on each side of that square. So the chunk of land is much bigger than it looks in the picture. We produce a small amount of oxalate, probably means binding an excess serum calcium in a way that can be excreted. That's possible. I'm not going to say yes or no to that, because we all know Bob gets in trouble when he tries to do science. If you have any last minute comments or questions, now's the time to get them in. We've got just a few moments left on the live stream here. While we're waiting for the last minute comments to come in, I'm going to go back and do this one thing again just because I can, and it's very easy. For those of you that were joining late and did not see it, once again, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I don't know anything about the science. What I do know is what's happened to me. And to show you what's happened to me one more time before we go, here's a quick little 20-second clip of me from 26 months ago.
Hello everyone, semi-retired Bob here. Welcome back to the channel. Before I get into today's topic, I'm going to give you a very brief recap of what happened to me over the last year and some change and why I haven't made any videos because of it. And
there you have it, folks. You can make up your own mind about whether or not I should be talking about the carnivore diet or not. I see we're up to 25 people. That's amazing. Thank you all very much for being here. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend, because we've come to that point in the show where I have to say goodbye because I have to go to work. But thanks for being here today. I hope you all have a great weekend. And don't forget, get out there, be 1% better. Today, tomorrow, every day. Have a great day, folks. We'll see you in the next one.